on our Foreman YouTube channel, as always.
Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Let's see who we
Hey, how's it going?
have on.
So we currently have 6 members present. We'll give it a few more minutes. Hopefully they can join us.
Thank you.
And we can, when we're ready to start, Chairperson McCann, you can still do the roll call just to verify.
Okay. Okay, well, good evening. I'll call the meeting to order and we'll do the roll call and see where we stand. Perhaps someone will join while we're doing the roll call. So this is the Foreman College and Career Academy Local School Council. It's May 24th, 2022. So let's see who's here of our parent representatives. Please say present or put I in the chat. Ruwaida Hamad, Lawanda Jones, Mary McCann Sanchez, I'm present. Santa Montoya and Rufino San Gabriel. Okay, Ruth Cruz,
Present.
Israel Flores,
Present.
Miss Balsam Malhas,
Present.
Miss Sabrina Woods, present. She came across on the screen. And Miss Anwar Ahmad,
Present.
okay, our student representative. Mr. Escamilla,
Present.
okay. So Secretary Flores, how are we doing in terms of our numbers?
So we're at 7 local school council members present. That would establish quorum.
Okay, thank you.
And I spoke with Miss Rueda Ahmad earlier. I'm hoping that she'll join us because she said she would be stopping by today's meeting.
Okay, very good. So we'll hope that she will join us. So let's move on to point 3, which is the approval and the amending of the agenda.
So I know Mr. Garces is sharing his screen. Mr. Garces, okay. So what I'll do is I'll share my screen, but remember if you go to foremanCCA.org and you go to the LSC tab, you would also be able to find all of our agendas and minutes. But I will share my screen shortly. So this is today's agenda being displayed.
So do we have a motion to approve the agenda for today?
I motion to approve the agenda.
Okay, Ms. Malhouse has made the motion. I will second. All in favor, please say aye or put your name in the chat.
Escamilla, aye.
Flores, aye.
Okay, and then
I just believe, I'm not sure if we got Ms. Malha's vote in.
Yeah, she was the original person who
Right.
motioned.
Okay, yeah, so we got the 7 votes.
okay.
Motion has been passed.
Okay, so the motion has carried and now we need to move on to the approval of the minutes from last week's, or well, it's actually from the month before, correct?
Yes, this would then be from April 26.
Okay, so let's just take a moment to look through those.
And Chairperson McCann, I will follow your lead. Once you let me know, I can scroll down further.
Okay. Yeah, I think you could continue scrolling. I know some of us have already read these. Okay, please continue. Okay, let's continue. Yes, let's continue. Okay, continue. Okay, I think we can continue. Okay, so we've reviewed the minutes from the April LSC meeting. Does anyone have a suggestion for an amendment? Something to change? If not, is there a motion to approve these minutes?
I move to approve April
Okay.
26 minutes.
A second.
Okay, all in favor, please say aye or put your name in the chat.
I believe we're just waiting on Anwar's vote. Anwar, if you could drop a vote.
Yep.
Thank
Yes,
you.
okay.
Okay, with that, the motion carries.
Okay, thank you. So we will be able to move on to public participation at this time.
So I have Dr. Melanie Lopez, one of our instructors here for our students in the cluster program, also one of our culture and climate leads. And she recently worked with our culture and climate team to draft our school-wide safety plan, but I know she has an appointment soon. And the idea is to look at the school-wide safety plan and then also consider some data that I'm going to be presenting in my principal's report so that we can vote, do two votes. One vote is for our school-wide safety plan, and one vote is for our school resource officers and retaining them in the school building. But I have some things to present. She has some things to present, and I then because she would need to leave early, we can wait for the vote until after I present, or we can vote however our chairperson also recommends. So Ms. McCann, whatever you think would be best. Again, Dr. Lopez would be presenting on the school-wide safety plan. She can do it from beginning to end, and then we can vote towards the end. Or we can, if you like, I can also present first, because I know their school-wide safety plan is also contingent on whether or not the LSC is interested in continuing to retain our SROs moving forward. So that is also going to impact the school-wide safety plan. So either way, I can present first, or Dr. Lopez. Dr. Lopez did sign up just in case for public participation.
Yeah, so since Dr. Lopez, if she has the deadline and leaving, why don't we go ahead and hear from Dr. Lopez first, please?
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me. I'm going to drop some links in the chat. These links.
Are you going to present? So should I take my stop sharing my screen?
Yes, you can stop sharing. I also dropped the links in the chat for what I'm going to be sharing this evening.
Yes, and we can see those links.
Okay. Give me 1 second. I'm preparing to share. So as Mr. Escamilla said, I'm Dr. Melanie Lopez. I work at our Foreman Cluster program. I'm also lead for the Culture and Climate team, and I work with our Student Voice Committee. I'm honored to be here this evening. Thank you for having me. The team has worked to kind of review and revise the school-wide safety plan from last year. Last year, I was the Culture and Climate interventionist, and I worked more extensively with this plan. Our goal this year was to review the plan and see, the feedback we received from our school community in regards to retaining our SROs, and whether or not there would be any adjustments or major, changes to our safety plan for the 2022-2023 school year. So just a little about what is the CNC and what is FCCA. So the CNC is our culture and climate team, and the SC is the safety committee that pretty much is housed within the culture and climate team as like a subcommittee. And main focuses of the culture and climate team in conjunction with our safety committee is to consider restorative practices, basically helping students, make better decisions, and when maybe decisions that are not to the best of their interests are made, how to restore the damage that could be done, right? If I'm cutting class, for example, and I'm losing instructional time, how do I restore the learning that I've lost? Things like that. We worked with building school culture through the Pride campaign that is currently every Friday. We have our School Pride Fridays. We do raffles, we do competitions, we do all kinds of fun activities to try to promote that school spirit. Social emotional learning, which is something that's embedded within the curriculum, but it's also something we want students to have great activities and great memories in school, kind of provide those sensory outlets during their school day. Elevating student voice through our Student Voice Committee, which Anwar is a part of, and then prioritizing our school safety plan for the safety of our school community. And then who are the members of our culture and climate team? Obviously, our assistant principal, Ms. Lydia Paredes, is our overseer. Mr. Sebastian Pittman, who is the new culture and climate interventionist for this school year. Dr. Blake, who works in our music department and also is part of our teacher supporting teachers, which is something culture and climate is also working on. Mr. Richard Wilson, one of our special education teachers. Mr. Gus Lamberis, another one of our special education teachers. Myself. Mr. David Rodriguez, our social worker. Ms. Jean Fitzgerald, one of our art teachers, and Ms. Leticia Gonzalez, who's our operations manager. So what is a safety plan? It is basically when schools look at the disciplinary data throughout their school year, they start to see where some areas of concerns or need and start to address where some safety concerns might be housed and try to come up with a way to meet those needs using the mindset of restorative practices. And so CPS uses obviously the Student Code of Conduct, or the FCC. There's 6 major groups within the Student Code of Conduct of student possible disciplinary violations, ranging from slightly disruptive to extremely disruptive and dangerous, obviously ranging from minor, infractions to minor consequences to more severe consequences, depending on what the issue is or what the infraction is that the student has committed. And if you look at the bar graph on the other side of our slide, this is basically where Foreman sits from 2018 until this school year 22, where we are in regards to which areas seem to be our biggest heavy hitters, as far as which groups do we have the biggest issues with. And funny enough, in 2018-19, our group 2s and our group 3s were pretty high up there, especially group 2. This school year, our group 1 has won by a landslide. These are the more disruptive kind of Not so much aggressive behaviors, they're just disruptive. Maybe teachers would describe them as annoying behaviors that can disrupt instruction or disrupt hallways. Um, and this is where we're having some of our biggest, disciplinary issues. So student hall walking or leaving the building without permission are some of those concerns. Attendance issues, substance abuse violations, technology violations, students trying to bring contraband into the building, minor altercations. These could be like, a push or a shove, but not a maybe full-blown physical altercation, verbal altercation, or just defying authority in the building. So our SROs kind of play a part in our plan. They were part of our safety plan for the 21-22 school year, based off the survey results we had from last year. And so our SROs this year have probably issued what we call our Pride credits, 410 of those. Our Pride credits are like school credit or school money that's kind of like a positive reinforcement for those good behaviors. It's a Google form that any staff member, including our SROs, can complete, and students can accrue these to be used at our school store, or they could even use them in replacement of like school reflection. So if I'm late to a class and I get a reflection, but I have a Pride credit for a good behavior, they kind of balance each other out if I want to use it that way. The SROs have also documented over 472 interactions with students. These could be positive or disciplinary interactions. They are crisis intervention trained, so they've done some crisis interventions in the building. They do keep an open door policy where students and parents are more than welcome to come and see them, have discussions with them if there's an issue that needs to be addressed immediately. They've sat in on parent meetings and disciplinary meetings. They've attended school sporting events, even outside of work hours, just to encourage our school athletes and promote school spirit. They interact with students and staff on a daily basis. They've even attended classes to expound on topics the teachers were covering, or held workshops with students in our school library during their lunch periods. And they provided kind of a safer environment within the building. So our safety plan is prioritized on 3 big priorities that CPS pushes across all schools: physical safety of students, emotional safety, and what they call relational safety, which means building like those interpersonal relationships with students, making sure that there's that respect and that mentorship throughout the building. Our safety plan priorities for us abide in, for priority number 1, when it comes to physical safety, that students are able to transition in and around the building using preventative measures from students leaving the building, because that is a concern for their safety. If a student is supposed to be in school, not in the building, and something happens to that student, that is a safety concern. Student and staff SEL supports, that's where that emotional safety is coming in for us, meaning, are we providing a culturally responsible school, culturally responsible curriculum, a student voice? Are we allowing for students to have, access to social workers, school psychologists, to meet those social emotional needs that some of our students might have? And are we embedding any social emotional components in our curriculum so that they're receiving some kind of SEL throughout the day, throughout their classes? And then finally, conflict resolution work. So, that's kind of where that relational trust is coming. Sometimes our SROs play a part in this part, specifically helping students have like peace circles, helping students have difficult conversations between themselves and someone that they may have a conflict with. And that can include, I'm mad at my teacher because I failed that class and they're not giving me an opportunity. I want to have a peace circle about this. Things like that can happen. So using our restorative justice program and having worked also with our TIERS grant, we use things like conscious discipline. We're helping to train our staff in using more restorative practices and having more of those restorative conversations with students. Reducing the amount of suspensions, using more of a reflection process, so that the reflections are not considered a detention so much as like a chance for the student to learn from their mistakes, and hopefully not continue to make the same mistake. We've offered seminar courses at all grade levels. In our ESL, they're more communication courses where students get that social emotional piece, and they're also getting like that academic support. We have our Pride campaign to continue to promote those positive behaviors. We've offered an extensive amount of OST programs after school and even during school hours to kind of develop student leadership, working with SEL supports, help our students with what we call executive functioning skills. So those basic, like how to get organized for class, how to do time management, how to come prepared for class every day, those basic foundational skills that some of our students struggle with. Having like a behavior system in the hallways, doing the hall sweeps, and of course, having our SROs working with students and providing mentoring. So what about specifically SROs? So every year we are required to conduct kind of a survey throughout the building, throughout the school community, and get the school community feedback on where they feel our SROs stand in regards to whether we want to continue and retain them for the following school year, whether they feel that the support that the SRO is providing is valid, whether they feel that the plan is being followed. So we did a survey that was sent out as a Google form. It was mailed out through our Aspen system electronically. There was also a way to access it through QR codes within the school community or surrounding community. And anyone who is a stakeholder at Foreman, whether within the four walls or outside of Foreman, could voice their opinion as to whether they felt we should retain our SROs or not. And this is the survey results that we received. 68% of the 137 respondents feel that we should, in fact, continue to retain our SROs for the 22-23 school year. We had about 19% of those responses coming from parent and guardians. There was about a 34.3% coming from teachers or staff members within the building, and a whopping 46.7% were actually students.
And I'll go more in depth into looking at that those survey results as well.
So who are our SROs currently? It is Officer John Bauer and Officer Kathy Nowakowski. So the question is, do we keep both SROs? Do we retain one SRO based off the data, or do we not follow the data and retain no SROs, right? So the good thing about having both Officer John and Officer Kathy is that you do have a male and female representation within the SRO body. They have been at Foreman now with us since the 2019-2020, I believe, academic year. So they are familiar with the school community, they're familiar with our students. Having two can also allow more presence in the building. If one is on vacation or if one has to be out of the building for any reason, we have at least hopefully one of our SROs in-house. When they're doing workshops, they could be more geared female workshops, male workshops, or they could each tackle workshops from a different perspective. So it just allows for more coverage and more opportunity if we do choose to retain both of our SROs. And that is something that the LSC will have the opportunity to vote on how you guys feel about whether we retain both, retain one, retain none, right? So per the recommendations of the survey, we recommend that the FCCA retain both of our SROs for the 22-22 academic year in conjunction with the safety plan priorities that were targeted. And this is now the opportunity for the LSC to voice their concerns. All data that was provided was from our CPS dashboard system. And one of the links I dropped in the chat was also the written plan for the 22-23 school year. I have no problem in briefly posting it up here if anyone needs to kind of review it. It is very in-depth. So if you want time to peruse at your leisure, but here it breaks down basically the priorities again and how each of those priorities would be covered by this safety plan. And data again has been linked to support any results and where our behaviors are most concerning. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Lopez. Any questions for Dr. Lopez and the presentation pertaining to the school-wide safety plan? Or if it's just a question that you have in mind, feel free to ask.
I don't know if you're on mute, Ms. McCann.
I am so sorry. Yeah, so thank you. That was very clear. The question I have is when you talk about the reflections, rather, as the means for, for changing behaviors and building kind of a new consciousness, do the police officers, the SORs themselves, lead those reflections, or is that done by counselors or staff?
Mr. Pittman, our culture and climate interventionist, is the main point of contact for reflections, but the SROs do assist.
Okay. Is there another question from anyone else? So I guess my follow-up question to that would be that clearly it looks as if the community at Foreman does want to include the SROs as part of the safety plan. But are there other schools or are there other experiences where those resources are invested, say, in social workers? Is there something special about being a police officer that goes along with this plan? I guess is my question.
I know there are schools that opt not to have SROs in the building by vote, and what they'll do is the money that would go to the salaries of the SROs would go to other intervention programs or outside resources and support for students. For, the school would obviously do a deep dive as to what their specific needs are, as every school is different, and then they would try to align the funds that might go to an SRO to those additional supports within the building. We do have some additional supports thanks to our Cheers grant on top of the ability of having our SROs. And I know Mr. Escamilla mentioned possibly bringing like Umoja in as another outlet for next school year to align with our culture and climate. So it doesn't mean if we have our SROs, we cannot have those additional supports. It just requires finding those additional funding options to provide. Am I accurate with that, Mr. Escamilla?
Yeah, I think it's to go back to the original question about, is there something special of them being police officers that helps create a different impact to our school-wide safety plan? And I think going into the breakdown of those thoughts with the presentation that I have, I basically replicated a survey that CPS had created. The safety and security team downtown created for prior years to continue to poll or survey our school community, and I think you'll get more of an insight as to where those beliefs are at and where the benefits are at with having an SRO versus like an organization that would send us a mentor or a tutor of some kind. There would be a bit of a difference. And I think with just some basic reflection, if you know that you're being mentored by a school resource officer versus being mentored by an organization that sent a college student, usually is where they hire mentors or tutors, you can immediately begin to think about the differences that you can leverage if you're talking to a police officer that is playing a different role than your traditional police officer that is out on the streets. I believe there's a question here. You can unmute, Ms. Cairns.
Sure, I wasn't sure if I'm able to ask questions or if it's only for the LSC members, so I wanted to check on that first.
Sure, you're an invited person from our pack. Definitely, go ahead.
No, I'll wait for you to finish, so. And any of the other LSC members who have questions.
Any other LSC members?
So one question that, just to lead off of that, I'm just curious to know if other options were explored. Like if we did go away from SROs, was there any like research done on that? What would that look like? Yeah, I'm just kind of curious about that.
yeah, so the information that was provided to us is that each SRO, if we do not vote an SRO in, that would equal out to $75,000 per SRO that our school would then be able to utilize. CPS has very specific vendors that we can only work with. We can't just like pick and choose who we can go into business with or do a contract with. So CPS has made recommendations of vendors that they've already vetted and have approved as approved district vendors that we can partner up with. And so it would be a matter of trying to work with one of those vendors within the means of the funding that's provided that goes towards our 2 SROs. And so we would then work with the vendors to try to do the same type of work that our SROs are bringing. So those 3 areas that were highlighted by Dr. Lopez, and also the 3 priorities that we came up with in each one of those areas would be how the vendors would help us cover that. But we would want to do the same thing as we would keep the priorities the same, but we would just have to then work with the vendor to make sure that they're helping us cover those needs. I am not sure exactly what that equals out to. If $150,000 will equal out to, them sending us 10 mentors versus, 2 SROs, for example, that I am not sure what. We would have to then enter into conversations with those vendors to come up with the agreements. Now, I do, as Dr. Lopez mentioned, we worked this year with an organization called Umoja that is well known for bringing workshops to our school community. And they've done that, and they're going to continue to do that with the next ones that we've purchased were for our security team. But they would not necessarily send out people that would then be like staples of the school. They would simply provide us with workshops throughout the school year that would end up still helping our school community. But there are other vendors that have said that they would send us additional people if that's what we are interested in looking into.
Yeah, that was kind of helpful. Yeah, I was just kind of curious what were the other options and how that would look like. And I was also curious to know about the infractions. Most of the infractions were on the group 1 and 3. So I was kind of curious to know the numbers on the big infractions where maybe students had to be arrested, and kind of how that played out. Yeah.
Sure thing. I have a response to that question, and I see Dr. Lopez has her hand up. Go ahead, Dr. Lopez.
So group 1 are minor infractions. There would be no need to bring any type of, arrest or anything like that. These are things like walking the hallway when you should be in class, or, maybe being disruptive in class, something like that. That could be addressed in-house. To the level of any police involvement, I would say that's more a group 5 or a 6, depending on what was done and if it was, extremely aggressive, violent, or something of that nature. Even group 3s are, you might get a reflection and some other, consequence, but it's very rare for police to step into a group 3 infraction.
So, and to add on to that response, and then I see Miss Ruth Cruz with her hand up. She would be next. Is that number 1 is I've already made it perfectly clear with our school resource officers, and after getting to know me on day 1, this has been a pretty clear message with them, and we work in concert on this, so that if there is an infraction, and there are no arrests that are taking place here at Foreman with student infractions. There are no arrests that I want to ever make happen to a student. I think that is violates their right to a free public school education. And the only time that that may, and that I would have to, consider that, is if and when there is imminent danger to other people here at the school. So, for example, if police come to Foreman and they say, we have video, or we even identified students, John Doe, as having shoplifted some candy and soda and whatever, shoplifted some products from Walgreens, and now we're here to arrest them. They would have to do that. I would politely tell them that they would have to do that on their own time outside of Foreman, and they can locate. They were able to locate the student that they're interested in locating at the school building. They can locate them at home. That is not something that CPS also prioritizes schools as safe havens. We want our schools to be considered safe havens for our students, but that doesn't mean that if someone comes to me and says, hey, someone just committed a horrific crime down the block and they're now in your building, that I'm going to be like, no, it's okay. If there are other people's lives are at risk, then I'm going to make that decision to make sure that we isolate and take the person into custody. But any type of, and our SROs are not even here for that. And they would even mention that to you as well, is that our SROs, the times that they come in for any type of discipline is for advice, is for crisis management. If a student needs to be taken to the hospital, if the student needs any type of crisis management because they have shared intentions of wanting to hurt themselves or hurt other people. And our SROs are looped in to provide that advice of what potentially can happen if you do X, Y, or Z. And since they are professionally trained and they know the law, they can share that information with students and families. And so that's when they're brought in. But they're never brought in to deal with a disciplinary infraction at all. That is administration, that is our culture and climate interventionist. They are there then to just facilitate and support in that way. But they wouldn't be in charge of saying, okay, Johnny, I'm going to issue you 3 reflections that you need to serve. They would never do anything like that. That wouldn't be their role at Foreman. And Ruth Cruz, I know you had your hand up. I'm sorry having to make you wait.
No, it's fine. So it does, my question goes along with Mr. Flores asked and what you have been saying. So has there been a situation where SROs had to get involved, or like it was getting really out of hand, was like a critical situation and they had a vital part to handle the situation? Has there been? And if there was, you think that if there would have been there, the situation could have been worse? I know you give a little description of what they do, but I'm just trying to see again how critical and what situations had happened in Foreman where they had to step in and they made a difference.
I would say from my experience in working closely with our SROs, 100% yes. They have stepped in for several key crisis intervention moments in de-escalating students, assisting families to take students to the hospital, and they have done plenty of that. They have done plenty of support outside of the school where if we have an inclination that something may happen outside of the school, that they're immediately there to respond because they work closely with me. If I say, can you please work with us in having more vehicles and more police presence in and around the school at dismissal, they have done that every time I've asked. If we need to, they've been present. They've been present if there happen to have been a fight, and to de-escalate those moments as well, based on several conversations they've had with several of our students. So our students have become familiar with them, where they know that they're not there as police trying to arrest the students, but rather to de-escalate this, whatever the situation may be. they've done that. They've done that as well here in the school building.
So I know based on the survey, 68% out of the 137 said we should retain the SROs, which 46% were students. But do you have a breakdown of like individual, like, you know, parents, like the 46% of students, were there like 90% let's keep SROs, or was it 20?
I can begin. I also, by the way, shared the survey results with all of you via email right now, but I can jump into my report and begin to dive into those details.
Perfect.
And so Ms. Lopez, please go ahead. You have a comment.
Yeah, I just wanted to excuse myself. I have to be at another meeting. If there are no other questions for me, if that is okay.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for your presentation.
Thank you for having me.
So this is my principal's report. I just wanted to give us a sense of where we stand towards the end of the school year. We typically do see a rise, a slow and steady rise at the end of the fourth quarter with grades. But I did want to give everybody a sense of where we're at. As at the top, you see some of our student attendance rate data over the years. And you see that we're back on the way up after the pandemic. Not where I'd like for us to be. It's going to take some work for us to continue to, have those higher attendance rate numbers that we were experiencing in the past before the pandemic, but I'm confident that we will get there. But as you can see, we are on the way back up at our current attendance rate of 75.3%. At the bottom, what you'll see are 2 years, 2021 and this particular school year, 2022. And you'll look at what you'll see is a breakdown of grades. Maybe hide this here. The breakdown of grades, A being green, B still being a lighter green, C being yellow, D being orange, and F being more of that pinkish salmon color. And so I'll bring us straight to the attention of quarter 4 PRG. Quarter 4 PRG stands for progress reports. So these were our last progress reports before our report cards that are due at the end of the school year. And so here are the latest grades for this particular school year. What you'll see is that we have 85%, an 85% pass rate compared to an 80% pass rate in 2021 at this same time last year. So in terms of passing students, we're seeing an increase with our last progress reports with students overall passing. And we hope to continue that same trend at the end of this fourth quarter where we traditionally see a small spike back up in grades. So I'm hoping that 85% pass rate continues to see an uptick. I just wanted to highlight some of our end of the year moments here. What you'll see is we are trying to do a new tradition within our students in our cluster program, where our students in our cluster program also are having their senior luncheons. Although our students in our cluster program are not all seniors, but they wanted to give a proper send-off to the students in cluster that are seniors and are graduating. And seeing that this group is such a tight-knit group that's that tends to have a lot of similar classes together, even though they travel throughout the building, I would say that they feel very comfortable with one another, and we wanted to make sure that we acknowledge their time, because a lot of parents refrain from sending them to things like prom or our senior luncheon. I'm hoping that we can create more safeguards where parents feel comfortable and confident in sending their students with the rest of our students at our regular senior events that take place every single school year. But because we're not there yet, I wanted to try to work with our staff, and our staff in the cluster program is phenomenal. And our new assistant principal, Lydia Paredes, is working closely with that staff and to make things happen for them. There's a little thank you note there in one of those images from our cluster students. But we're bringing their luncheon here. We normally have what we call a Foreman Fest, and we wanted to replicate that here as well. We replicated a little festival for our students in our cluster and a senior luncheon moment in the building as well. What you see up top and center is students working with organizations to explore entrepreneurship and being their own bosses. And so our seniors are upperclassmen working with an organization there trying to come up with a business plan. We see also pictures from our JROTC banquet and our senior decision day, where seniors announce proudly and sign the colleges that they're attending, our senior luncheon moments, and then also our Learn, Plan, Succeed at the bottom left-hand corner, where you see our seniors working on their post-secondary plans after graduation, which is a graduation requirement as well. I will come back to this. This is our voting for student fees and transfers, because what I wanted to present and share are some of the questions that you all were wondering about pertaining to our school resource officers. And so here we have the breakdown, and again, feel free to pause or raise your hand so I can answer any of your questions as I go through these. I know that at the time that Dr. Lopez was also reviewing this data, we had 137 responses, and we opened it for a day, and we reopened it for a day. There was one more person that ended up responding. So we have a total of 138 responses. And here is the breakdown. We see here 47% of those that responded were students, where 18%, almost 19% were parents, almost 27% were teachers, and 7.2% were non-teaching staff. And so here is one of the questions that comes up in the survey is, I believe our school resource officers help to keep our school safe. The 1 is highly disagree, and the 5 represents highly agree. So as you can tell, if we combine, if we keep 3 as neutral, and we combine 4 and 5, we have a pretty high percentage rate of our school community that believes that our school resource officers help keep our school community safe. And I'll leave this here just so you all can look at the numbers, but I also emailed this presentation to our entire LSC. Here's a bit of an interesting breakdown. This part of the survey was asking the people who are taking the survey to create a sense of priority by ranking the ways they believe SROs help keep our school safe, from least important being a number 1 to most important being a 6. And so if you just take a look at the first one at the left-hand side, this is an at-risk shooter. Again, these are ranking the ways that people believe SROs keep our school safe. And you see the 6s there are pretty high, believing that our school resource officers, this is one of the key areas where they keep our school community safe. We see also to deter presence of weapons. And then we also see it being high under general peace of mind, giving our students, our staff, general peace of mind, knowing that there are police officers, uniformed police officers in the building. But I also want to leave this up just so that you can continue to take a look and potentially ask questions or just take in the results.
Has there been a concern, like not just concern about people being worried, but like a specific incident regarding the active shooter risk, or is this just people being generally worried about it happening?
I think it's people generally being worried. I think it's, every year, quite frankly, we hear about, it's unfortunate, but every year we seem to hear about an active shooter
Right. There was one
event
today.
somewhere in the country. And we also do our drills similar to how we did drills when we were all in school, like a fire drill. We do an active shooter drill. We don't necessarily call it like that, but we do a drill where we call it a lockdown drill. And so I know that students are thinking about those things when we do these drills as well.
Has anybody actually gone, like from Foreman, gone over with the staff and the students what the research shows in terms of presence of an SRO related to the likelihood of an active shooter situation and whether they're likely to prevent or stop it? Because I think sometimes people are making decisions based on fear, but not actually documented impact.
No, to answer your question, no. There hasn't been some sort of like presentation that goes into that type of research or that data. I'd be interested in if you know where I can locate it, or if you've seen an organization deliver that type of data, that'd be great.
I would have to find it. I can send you the links, but basically it was determined that they don't seem to be preventing it. And in the few cases that it has happened when there was an SRO present, the SRO did not stop the shooter. They were not the ones who did. And in fact, in one case that I can think of, they left instead. And the other thing is there's, a lot of conversation about mental health. But again, kind of coming back to people's personal beliefs and what the data actually shows. Did you know that hundreds of mental health care workers in Chicago just last month wrote a letter to the mayor asking her to stop having police be involved in mental health crises?
No, I did not. And I'm not, is that a particular organization, or is that just in general a number?
It was a general, about 300 of them got together and signed a letter and tried to deliver it to the mayor's office, but were stopped actually by the police from delivering it in person. There, an awful lot of organizations have kind of worked together on that. And that's why the district now has partnered with 5 different programs to offer schools options as alternatives for crisis intervention, because they're finding that even when officers have crisis intervention training, the data shows that their responses to it are not they're not following what research shows are best practices. A lot of times when there are issues where police actually escalate those situations, those officers have still received the training and chose to disregard it or forgot or, whatever, but even the training did not show a significant improvement.
I'm going to be moving on to the next slide. So here, this also pertains to the previous slide of, rank the ways you believe an SRO helps keep our school safe from least important to most important. And then this question was a follow-up question. If they happen to select none of the above, our SROs do not help our school be safer. And the number one was, again, disagree to agree being the number 5, or highly disagree to highly agree. Of the 138 respondents to the survey, how have you met your SRO? And we have here 60% saying yes. I personally have had a positive relationship with our SROs. And so again, in this case, it's highly disagree to highly agree. And you see here the majority of the people that have interacted with our SROs have had or report positive relationships with them. I am not comfortable approaching our SROs. Again, the key thing to pay attention to here is the word "not" in the survey question. I am not comfortable approaching our SROs. Highly disagree with the 1, highly agree in the 5 area. So again, further indicating that our school community feels comfortable approaching our SROs. Our SROs have worked to build relationships with students at our school. 1, again, being highly disagree, to 5 being highly agree. At your school, how often do our SROs get involved with disciplinary issues that are supposed to be handled by administration? Here you see, again, 1 being highly disagree and 5 being highly agree. I believe our school administrators and staff have good relationships with students. 1 being highly disagree, 5 being highly agree. Overall, I have a generally positive feeling about Chicago police officers in the community outside of the school. 1 being highly disagree and 5 being highly agree. Given your experience with the SRO program this year, how likely are you to recommend that your school keeps your school resource officers for next year? Again, 1 being highly would not recommend and 5 being highly recommend. So this was that percentage that Dr. Lopez was referring to when she put the 4 and the 5 together. And that is the end result of our survey. And so at this time, I'd like to continue to open it up for discussion or conversation or questions.
So just to throw out things that like jumped out at me. So it was mentioned that 60% have had an interaction, I believe, with the SROs. So that 60% leads me to wonder about the 472 Pride tickets that were passed out. So I was just kind of curious about that a little bit. That's just some things that popped up at me. And then I looked up like how many days are in the school, like in the year. So it's like 176. So 176 and then 472. So they're like seeing 1 or like 2, maybe 3 students within 1 day. And then it makes me think only 60% of the students are there. Those are just things that kind of popped up at me. Just wanted to see if people caught that and thoughts on that.
Yeah, so do you mind repeating the point that you were trying to make? You were saying you're identifying the 60% having met our SROs and then comparing that to the data point of roughly 472 interactions that they did throughout the given school year, correct?
Right. So yeah, I'm kind of just trying to figure out what I'm trying to say too. Sorry, but I kind of just first made me think about how many interactions were they having in one day, and then maybe those interactions they're just having them constantly with the same students. That's just like kind of something I wanted to point out or just bring up, but not really a question, just things that jumped out at me.
Yeah, that may, I think that may be a possibility that they would be interacting with some of the same students that they're developing that rapport with, that come back to engage with them, talk with them. So I can see that being the same, some of the group that is included in this being the same students. Any other question or point?
I would also say that I'm not sure if our students all understood SRO when responding to this, because some of them may have interacted with John and Kathy, but may not have realized that that's who that was when they put in no, or I don't know. So like that could have influenced these results as well.
How much does this cost to have them there?
Right now, this is not what they put the price of 75,000 per SRO is the way the district is pricing it out.
And so you said that funding could be used for other things if their contract is not renewed?
Correct.
And the school can choose to keep just one and have a balance of some of that money being freed up for other things and still having at least, then still having an officer on campus, correct?
That is correct.
And yeah, following up on that question, so the gender balance was mentioned before as a rationale for having two, but do we have any sense, is there more of a perceived need for SROs to deal with males or females? Have there been any issues if a male officer has, worked with a female child or vice versa?
Can you repeat your question again?
Yeah, so one of the things that was mentioned earlier was that having two means that we can have a male and a female. And we have male and female students. But do we have any, sense that any evidence that that's been important to have, for example, to have a female officer? Has it been important?
It certainly has come up on several occasions. If and when we are needing to leverage our SROs to provide information or to ask questions, it certainly has helped when we have a female officer and a male officer. And to go back to part of your part of your question as well was, do we notice there being more infractions committed by male students rather than female students? I would say it's pretty equal, where we see the level of infractions happening at an equal pace from both genders.
I know there's quite often the focus when we talk about genders and law enforcement tends to relate to, comfort of females, especially if there's any concern about, just like if there's any sort of physical restraint and what that could be perceived at with touching, and also if there's any complaints about like sexual harassment or assault. Has there been anything that like indicates that there's a strong preference to make sure that we also have a male officer? Because maybe the solution is to just have the female, and then if there's some sort of incident where a male officer would be needed, that one could be sent out, because the school's still able to have extra cops sent out when there's a safety issue, correct?
Correct. Yeah, no, and again, that would probably be the case if we ever needed to have someone be physically restrained, is that our SROs wouldn't be the ones doing that. They would have to call someone else to do that. That hasn't happened in my experience, where we needed to call the police to then have students restrained like that.
I'm just also curious about how are the relationships of like Foreman with other police officers who are not SROs, just more officers in the area. How's the relationship with that?
I would say it's good. They often would have to also, if they needed to, inform the 25th district instead of only the 16th, they would do that. I've seen them continue to communicate with each other. Anything that they would need to report, like for example, if we need extra assistance outside of the school, I would say it's good, but I don't have any sort of data on how they get along with other officers outside of the school. Just based on my observations, they have really good relationships with other police officers, to the point where Officer Kathy Nowakowski has also organized other police officers to come in and play games with our students, like police versus Foreman basketball players, and we'll have an event like that. And there's several police officers that show up, and I want to say that they're probably from both 16 and 25 police districts.
So it seems that based on, well, I want to say thank you for providing that data. I think this gives us a better perspective of what students want, or, you know, their experience with the SRO. So that gives me an idea of, again, they're welcome, they appreciate being there, they like having them being involved. And as you have shared in other meetings, the SROs do a little bit more, like they help out with different things that is needed. I believe one time we talked about like driver license and stuff like that. So it seems they are part of like a family. It seems that students and staff have welcomed them, and they feel as they're part of, again, Foreman. So there's just not police officers. So again, I do appreciate this data. Seems that our students, our staff want SROs, appreciate SROs. So again, this actually helps understand and appreciate what they do.
Yeah, thank you for your points. Are there any additional points or questions that people would like to bring up?
I just wanted to say that, like, I am someone who is generally against police presence in schools just on principle. But I think, like, we have a unique experience with our SROs. I interact with John a little more so, maybe because of the floor that I'm on. But the interactions he has with students, it's not necessarily just based on like a disciplinary response or a reactive interaction. He really does have like a positive, friendly presence, especially in the halls with students. Is extremely positive and approachable, and students know that they can go to him. So I just wanted to make it clear that, like, even in the building, it's not necessarily like any interaction, whether it's with like a pride point or anything like that, that interaction that a student has with the SROs is one that is related to a disciplinary sort of response. It could have been just like general positive interactions with them in the halls.
Yeah, and we also, I mean, feel free to unmute and share, but I know Anwar is on the call. She's one of our students at our school, and so she could probably share an interesting perspective if she feels comfortable enough. You don't, if you want to. Ms. Woods also interacts with our SROs. If you want to unmute and share, again, only if you're interested in. And Ms. Mahas, you raised your hand again. Go ahead.
I did. I would also want to share that John has expressed that they attend trainings. So it's not just like any Chicago police officer in the building. They do attend trainings specific to the populations that they work with and being in school environments. And again, I'm going to mention John again just because I've had and I do think it may be because of the floor that I'm on that I do interact with him more. But there was an experience where he worked to de-escalate a situation with a student who was extremely frustrated, and he did it in a manner that just truly de-escalated and was then able to have a restorative and calm conversation with the student. And so, yeah, just wanted to share that experience as well.
So Jessica's raised her hand. Jessica?
Yeah, and I'll be brief because I know we've spent a while on this, and I appreciate that I've been given the chance to join in the conversation too. I think I'm just, as I listen to all of this, I'm really glad that people are having positive experiences. But I think I'm confused then because it's touted as a safety thing that we're investing $150,000 a year for just like positive experiences in the hallway. And I don't know if I'm missing something on what their role is, or if that is that it's just to kind of maintain the environment difference.
Any response to that comment?
Yeah,
and I did drop links, by the way, in answer to your question earlier, Mr. Eskimia. Sorry, for you to review about that you asked for.
I appreciate that. Yeah, no, I think the district, along with CPD, I think this is why they put out this particular question, is that these are some of the areas that the district and CPD feel that they can help keep a community safe, is through some of these higher risk or more things that people find very important, the ones that are listed here. But alongside of these things in keeping the school safe around these topics that you see here on the screen, that we're requiring and we're requesting more of the SROs, where it's more focused on relationship building, and also to help support our initiatives in the school. So our Pride campaign, if they're witnessing students exude any of our Pride characteristics, that they're there to acknowledge students, and then hopefully deter the opposite of that behavior, right? Of peace, respect, integrity, discipline, and excellence. So I would say, along with these topics, they're also in support of our initiatives that we have going at the school, and that is also the expectation that I communicate with them. And it's very common for us to have these types of conversations around the things that they already know that I'm expecting from them, and that they're already participating in within the school.
And then also I have a question, but not to make this too much longer, but so in terms of like physical restraints, who else in the school besides the officers know how to do a physical restraint?
Those are our security staff. Our security officers are all trained in that, and so they would be the ones mainly responding to things like a fight, or they are the ones responding to things that happen in classrooms. It's our security guards, right? It's never like, oh, there's a fight in room 100, let's send our SROs over there. No, that's not how it works. If our SROs happen to be around the vicinity where something like that were to take place, they would react, but they're not physically restraining or anything like that, or putting handcuffs on students to restrain or anything like that as well.
Okay.
Ms. Woods, you had, and I noticed Ms. Woods had her hand up.
I did have my hand up. I just wanted to share a few brief encounters that I have had with Officer John Bauer. He is very approachable. He's been at Foreman for some time now, and I think that the kids really respect him and look up to him, and they feel comfortable confiding in him on different several occasions they have. I've actually seen him. I can piggyback on what Mrs. Malhouse has shared, that I have witnessed him, de-escalate some situations that could have gone another route. And just wanted to, share that insight about him. If the LSC is not comfortable with having two, seems like it's questions about us having two officers in the building. I can't say the same for the other one, but that's just the experience that I have witnessed with John. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And now we have a question from Ms. Kearns.
So knowing that a lot of times behavioral issues stem from things like special education services and that sort of thing, do the officers know info about kids with IEPs and 504s to know what kind of particular special considerations that need to be taken with specific students, especially related to their mental health history, and traumas that they've experienced and that sort of things, that they can be really mindful of that if there is a situation?
They are not previously made aware of students' IEPs to that level of detail, but I suppose there can always be room to figure something out where they have some level of information, but at the same time respecting students' privacy in sharing that information. But I would have to look into that further. But just to answer your question, no, they had not been previously made aware of those details found in a student's IEP or any type of mental health issues that a student may be going through.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so if there's no further interventions, I think we can move forward.
So yes, we would then want to vote on the retaining of one or two SROs, as you guys were discussing, and then the vote on the school-wide safety plan. Was there an interest in voting in one versus two, or would we want to start off with one vote to see where that takes us?
I think it would be recommended to vote on them separately. And so for the first, for the voting on the SROs, we would need to have a motion that would be stated so that we retain either one or two or none. So, I mean, whoever makes the motion would have could state it in the way that they feel best.
Maybe we can do into 3, 1. Are we going to retain SROs, and then we can go into 2 and then 1, and
Yeah, that would make sense, yeah.
Yeah.
Is there a
So-
motion to retain SROs in Foreman for the upcoming school year?
I move to retain our SROs for the upcoming school year. Or SROs for the upcoming school year.
I second it.
Just to clarify, we're voting to keep, not yet to keep both, right? Or just one, or just in general?
This would be what Ms. Cruz said, that we first then just vote on the retention of SROs, and then we go into whether it's going to be 2 or 1.
Okay.
So Mr.
Right.
Escamilla has moved to retain SROs. Is there a second?
I'll second.
And Ms. Woods has seconded. All in favor, say aye or put your name in the chat.
Okay, with that, we have 7 votes. The motion carries to have SROs and Foreman. And with that, I would like to bring up the motion to keep 1 SRO in the building.
I second. So all in favor, say aye or put your name in the chat, please. Okay, so we have 2 votes as I'm reading it, correct?
If I'm not mistaken, we have 3 votes. Ms. Ruth, can you just clarify?
That is correct.
So we got 3 votes.
Okay. So then that motion does not carry. So we would need another motion with the number to retain.
Go ahead.
I motion to retain 2 SROs.
Second,
I second that.
all in favor, please say aye or put your name in the chat. So it looks like we have 5 votes in favor. So that would be a majority vote, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So then the motion has carried. And 2 SROs are approved for the upcoming school year. Then we would need to move on to approval of the safety plan that was outlined. And that was the plan, just to remind you, that that Dr. Melanie Lopez introduced at the beginning. Do we have a motion to approve that safety plan, the school-wide safety plan?
I move to approve the school-wide safety plan presented by Dr. Melanie Lopez on behalf of the Culture and Climate team.
Is there a second?
A second.
All in favor, please say aye or put your name in the chat.
Does your phone?
We're just waiting on Ms. Maha's vote. If she could drop it in the chat. So with that, the motion passes.
Okay, thank you. So we would move on to the next point in our agenda.
Yes, I wanted to share this part of my screen here. So as you all recall, seeing this breakdown earlier in the school year, we said we were interested in giving families this entire year to just become more prepared for next year's student fee proposal. And we increased our fees by 25%, which increased them from $120 to $150. Still, probably I would dare to challenge another school that has lower fees than Foreman, but we do need to increase our fees. We previously had a conversation around this, and this is the breakdown, and this is what we would send out now. But in preparation, we had told parents of the percentage that it was going to increase, and we gave parents this same breakdown. And so again, it would be moving from $120 to $150. And this would be the breakdown that we would provide families to give them a sense of where student fees are going to and what they help supply. And so I would just need, we can continue to ask questions, or we can continue to discuss. But we would need to approve this as an LSC to send this out, start notifying families at the end of this year so that they can be prepared for the start of next.
Okay, I move to that this proposal for the student fee of $150 for the upcoming academic year 2022 to 2023 be accepted and be sent to the parents as early as possible. Is there a second?
I'll second, Ms. McCann.
Thank you, Ms. Woods. All in favor, say aye or put your name in the chat.
And with that, the motion has passed.
Okay, thank you.
And if people, if everybody on the LSC opens up their LSC May folder so that you can gain access to the transfers that we would need to vote and approve for the month of May.
Okay, so we'll give everybody a minute to open that.
And then I'll explain things line by line.
I said, hey, Si, my sorority is having a small celebration at Westchester Park District on Sunday, June 26th from 4:30 to 7. I know you mentioned you and Raven would be out of
Your
town for her
mic's
birthday, so I am having a big
Mrs. Woods.
celebration later on in the summer.
Miss
Okay.
Woods, your mic is on. So in the first line, we had to transfer some funds from a Title I pointer line that went towards PPE equipment that we needed to stock up on. We also are working with 2 nurses in the school building that need supplies that we needed to also stock up on. And so this was the transfer that was made in order for us to be able to supply for any upcoming medical or health supply needs that the school was going to need. Then here we have $1,500 that went from a pointer line to be able to cover end of the year celebrations. These are the end of the year celebrations that we are planning and that we've currently been having with our students, whether that is something like Decision Day, our graduation, student luncheons, our end of the year Foreman Fest, etc. These were funds that were transferred to cover those celebrations and events for our students. We had $1,460 from a benefits pointer line moved or transferred to cover bus transportations for our end of the year sports needs and trip needs. So again, that $1,460 is to cover the transportation needs that we needed covering for our athletics and trips at the end of the school year. We have $10,000 that were moved from a benefit pointer line to purchase classroom and student supplies. This also, part of these funds also helped us with student activities that we've had and that we're also continuing to plan for in the near future. So although it is going towards classroom and student supplies, it's also going towards school school activities that happen within the school building. We have $5,435 that were moved from a miscellaneous pointer line to purchase gym supplies that go towards our participatory budget practice or project that was led by our Student Voice Committee. And so Anwar will probably just cap us off in her student rep report on the results and how we're moving forward with our participatory budget that was led by Student Voice. We also ordered $9,565 or transferred funds from miscellaneous pointer lines to be able to cover the vape. They're called Halo vape detectors. This is also part of the participatory budget that was led by our Student Voice Committee, and their voting that took place that steered students to this interest of having these modernized or modern vape detectors being installed into restrooms here at Foreman. Then $2,886 that were moved or transferred, again, continuing for our participatory budget voting and more PE equipment. These are connected to our volleyball stands that students voted to want to have as part of their PE equipment. We have $35,000 that we are transferring from unused bucket funds in order to be able to move them to enhance and renovate our main office. Our main office is the first point of contact for all families students and visitors. And we want to make sure that our main office and our sort of the face of the school continues to be a draw and an interest for families to be awed and come into a main office where they would be proud to continue to send their student to. And we, as you all who visited Foreman, know that we have different areas and different pockets of the building that we are continuing to renovate or interested in renovating. This is going to go towards painting and removing some old furniture and updating some of our flooring. And they were there, from what I understand, is my office is also included in the painting of that of the main office, the continuation of the main office. So that was that transfer that we're putting through, and then $2,000 coming from a miscellaneous pointer line to also what's the word I'm looking for? We have old radios that our security guards use that need renovating. We're not throwing them away. They're just going back to the company so that they can do a tune-up on all of the radios and get them back to working order. And so that is the transfer for those funds. And then lastly, the benefit pointer line, we are moving $9,300. This is going towards our furniture in our computer lab. Our counselors, along with some of our teachers in seminar, have helped us this year adopt a new counseling curriculum called C4. And part of that is they need space. And they gave, through this C4 program, they gave the school some funding in order to revamp a space that the counselors tend to use most, and that is our post-secondary lab, which we'll be upgrading with some furniture that is easily mobile, so that we can group seniors and group upperclassmen to have these conversations in front of counselors and post-secondary coaches. And that is going towards revamping that senior computer lab. These are the transfers that I am needing your support for approving. And if there are any comments, questions, I'm here to help.
Sorry, I was muted. If there are questions, we should make the questions right now. Otherwise, we could have a motion to approve these budget transfers. So I would move to approve the budget transfers as stated on the spreadsheet that in our folder, and that was just explained to us. Is there a second?
I second the motion.
I'll second that.
Okay. All in favor, please say aye or put your name in the chat.
Ms. Cruz, could you drop a vote in the chat? And the motion has been carried with 7 votes.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on then to the next point.
I am done with my report.
Okay, so I'll go back to the agenda. Could you put the agenda up again, Mr. Escamilla?
Sure.
Okay, so is there, moving on to point 8, oh, excuse me, the reports. We need to have a report from our student representative. Anwar, do you have a report for us today?
Yes, I do.
And Anwar, I don't know if this helps. You can let me know to take it off, or if you want to share your screen, I am more than happy to give up my screen.
I don't need to share my screen, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so good evening, LSC. I would like to keep this report very short and simple. So first of all, the participatory budgeting project that the Student Voice Committee worked on with the help of Ms. Gonzalez and Ms. Norma Hernandez does have its results. So I was going to say, if you guys remember, but then here it is up in front of you guys. So the items on the ballot were mirrors for the bathrooms, the halo sensor detectors, a hot food station, new music instruments and stands, and new gym equipment. And as a result, the need for gym equipment, the hot food station, and the Halo's smart sensor detectors were the top 3 winners. And so we do already have microwaves in the lunchroom, and Ms. Gonzalez is working on having the rest of the equipment for the incoming school year that will be ordered, considering our $15,000 budget. And so I would have to go back. So the price for the gym equipment was around $5,000, the hot food station $600, and for the sensors, let's see here. The sensors were $12,000, but we clearly cannot use all of them. But we will compromise and have a few in the bathrooms for the incoming school year. And so I am proud to hear that. I was rooting for another item, not going to lie. But next up, I do want you all to mark June 1st on your calendars for Foreman's first annual Spring Arts Showcase, 6 p.m. in our auditorium. Mr. Peterson and Dr. Blake's students will be performing what they have been working hard on these past few months, and this does include jazz and Latin American music, in addition to the showcase of Miss Fitzgerald's students' art pieces. Last time for the winter performance, we did have the art pieces on the board for everyone to see, but Mr. Stahoviak did share a good idea, and so we can have a QR code on the papers that we pass out for the audience, and that is where we can have the pictures of like the art pieces. And so that is June 1st, a Wednesday. And last but certainly not least, and way sooner than it seems, is graduation day on June 10th. Graduation will take place at Copernicus Center beginning promptly at 4 p.m. And I do hope to see most of you all there. Any questions?
Thank you very much.
So I just want to take this time to formally thank Anwar for her leadership and her work. I know to stand out in a crowd full of teenagers as your LSC school rep may be something intimidating, and she just lived up to the challenge. And I just want to thank you for your input, for your bravery, and for continuing to help us at Foreman do a better job and take students into account. And I think you're a great example of someone that we can all firmly agree that you're going places, and I can't wait to hear about your future. And hopefully down the line, Foreman continues to benefit from knowing that you were a graduate from here. So thank you again for your work, Anwar.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Yeah, I think the whole LSC feels that way. You're so clear on everything, and your leadership is truly valued. So good luck as you move forward.
Thank you, thank you.
Do we have a representative from BAC?
No.
I can speak
Oh, go ahead.
on the back. So the BAC is having their final meeting May 25th at 7 p.m. Luis Nervais from City Colleges, formerly from Olsey, will present a will present on successful transition of bilingual students into college and supports for parents and guardians. The link for the Google Meet is on our school website. Again, that is on May 25th at 7 p.m.
Okay. So May 25th, that's already tomorrow, right?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Is there someone from the Parent Advisory Committee on?
Yeah, that's me.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, so we are about to wrap up the end of the year. We now have to finish our spending this week. So the remainder of the money went to food, which had already been approved prior to our last meeting, for a meeting for the final session of their ESL classes. And then we are going to have our final meeting of the year in person. And so it's going to food and the remainder will go to food and supplies for that. I know that the order has been placed. Ms. Gonzalez placed it. I didn't get a total yet, but we approved that if there's anything remaining, that go to books so that we can start a lending library once the parent room reopens, which will hopefully be next year.
And may I also mention something about this breakfast that we're having? So I sent invites to all of our participants, parents who had attended English language courses, and any member, any parent who had attended a PAC meeting this year was invited to this breakfast that we're having on next Tuesday at 10 a.m. And so I sent a registration form for everyone so that we know who will be attending. And I'm going to link that here. This is a registration form. If anyone from the LSC is interested in meeting us for the breakfast in the social room at 10 a.m. on Tuesday, we'd be happy to have you here as well. And so that LSC members can talk to some of our parents. And then I expect to invite any staff members at Foreman who might have that period off down to the social room as well. So it'd be a good opportunity for us to meet in person if anyone here is interested. I posted, so Miss Cairns, what was the place that we're ordering from? Do you remember?
Don Pepe.
Yeah, it looks like a very, very good Mexican breakfast. And so if you're interested, please register just so that we know that you're going to be there so we can account for you.
It came highly recommended.
Yes.
Yeah, so on the 31st will be their last class for the English classes. So their class is normally at 9 o'clock in the morning. So we're inviting them to bring their devices and come in and have the class there because it has been virtual and the way that it's taught virtually, like using a website. So they do still have to have that access. So Mr. Escamilla, I'll actually be following up with you to find out the best way to, like if we want to just put up a sign with the Wi-Fi password or what. And then to stay, so the breakfast itself will be after that at 10 o'clock. So they can still finish their class.
Yes, there's a way we can have a guest sign in. So I'll have that ready for everybody. And I just want to emphasize that, again, this is an invitation to also our LSC, and I'd love to see you all there if you can, and just partake in a meal with us and shoot the breeze, get to meet other parents, get to meet some of our teachers, and enjoy a breakfast that morning.
And maybe we can recruit for the LSC there too.
Yep.
Yeah, I'll be able to attend. So thank you so much for that invitation.
To go on to the next point of FOIA, there have been no recent FOIA requests. And again, I'd like to take this opportunity to remind everybody on our YouTube stream to know that we have our agendas and minutes on our website for our LSC. PPLC, I don't know if is Ms. Majas on, or I can share about the PPLC as well.
I am on, but you could share.
Okay, So we are having our PPLC meeting this coming Thursday. The idea is that, you know, as a PPLC, we went through a protocol trying to have a conversation of what makes for effective curriculum. And we went through our procedure to try to outline, well, what would make for effective curriculum? And the ideas kept on coming from that conversation. And we were, because what we hope to do is to create some sort of tool where our teachers, our course teams, or departments can utilize to be more reflective on the impacts of their curriculum, and make wiser choices with their curriculum if it's just simply not working. If it's not benefiting our students, you know, how do I know when to put this aside and try something different to reach students? And so we're going to be creating another, we're going to have our upcoming meeting this Thursday to discuss what those tools, what that tool can look like, and whether we're going to try to pilot it and outline the scope of work over the summer as well.
Okay. Thank you. So moving on to point 8, do we have any need for an executive board meeting this evening? Anybody have a point for that? Okay, so if we do not, for the second part, public participation, is there anyone noted to speak out on that?
Not that I noticed.
All right. So then we're at the end of our agenda. Thank you all for a long but very productive meeting. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Chairperson McCann, if I can just, before we adjourn, just as a friendly reminder, our LSC last meeting for the current school year, and this current LSC will be June 21st. That would be officially our last LSC meeting for this particular LSC.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much for making that reminder. Any other announcement that anyone would like to make before we have a motion to adjourn? Okay, so if there's no further business, then I move that we adjourn this meeting of the LSC.
A second.
All in favor, please say aye or put your name in the chat.
And with that, we have 7 votes. The motion has been carried. Have a good afternoon, evening.
Yeah, thank you. Good evening, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Good night.